How does a hero become a traitor? And then a hero all over again. The story of Mats Hummels is one of modern football's most complex, emotional, and captivating tales of loyalty and betrayal. Stick with us for this incredible journey. And if you love stories that go deep beyond the pitch, make sure you're subscribed and have those notifications on, so you never miss an episode from the Legends of Football League. In the grand theater of modern football, where narratives are forged in glory and heartbreak, few players have embodied the beautiful, agonizing contradiction of the game quite like Mats Hummels. His story isn't a simple list of trophies won and matches played. No, it's a winding, epic novel of loyalty and ambition, of gut-wrenching departures and emotional homecomings. It's the story of a player who completely redefined his position, all while caught in the gravitational pull of the two great poles of German football. This is the tale of a boy born into the game, who became a general on the pitch, conducting play from the back with the elegance of a midfield maestro and the raw grit of a warrior. Our story begins not on a green pitch under stadium lights, but in a home where football was the very air they breathed. Born in Bergisch Gladbach in December of 1988, Mats was the son of Hermann Hummels, a professional footballer, who would later become a youth coach at the mighty FC Bayern Munich, and Ulla Holthoff, a sharp and respected sports journalist. In the Hummels household, football wasn't just a weekend passion. It was the language of the dinner table, the rhythm of their daily lives. From the earliest age, Mats wasn't just taught how to kick a ball. He was taught how to see the game, how to read the patterns, the spaces, the subtle shifts in momentum that most people miss. This footballing education became the absolute bedrock of his unique cerebral style. He walked through the hallowed gates of the Bayern Munich Youth Academy when he was just 6 years old. A place where legends are not just born, but meticulously forged. Through the years, he rose steadily through the ranks, this tall, impossibly composed figure who just looked different on the ball. While other young defenders were being drilled to clear their lines first and ask questions later, just get it out, Hummels was already playing with his head up, scanning the field, looking for that first incisive pass to break the lines. He was a thinker in a position so often reserved for destroyers. In 2006, he signed his first professional contract with Bayern, and the path seemed perfectly laid out. He was the local boy, a product of the world's most famous system, surely destined to become a fixture in the heart of that iconic Bavarian defense. He even made his Bundesliga debut in May 2007 on the final day of the season. But the path to the top, as we know, is rarely a straight line. The Bayern first team back then was an absolute fortress, guarded by established global superstars like the brilliant Brazilian Lucio and the fierce Argentinian Martin de Michelis. For a teenager, no matter how gifted, breaking into that side was a monumental, almost impossible task. Hummels found himself on the periphery, a prince in waiting, with no clear route to the throne. He was too good, too polished for the reserves, but not yet trusted for the main stage. It's that classic agonizing crossroads for a young talent. Do you stay and fight for a slim chance at the club of your heart, the club that made you? Or do you leave to find the one currency a young player needs more than anything else? Consistent, meaningful playing time. The decision that was about to be made would fundamentally alter the landscape of German football for the next decade. In January of 2008, a lifeline was thrown not from another giant, but from the industrial heartland of the Ruhr Valley. Borussia Dortmund, a club in the middle of a grand reconstruction led by a charismatic, bespectacled coach you might have heard of, named Jürgen Klopp, wanted Hummels on loan. At the time, Dortmund was a shadow of its former self, a sleeping giant lost in mid-table mediocrity. For Hummels, it was a clear step down in club stature, but a potential giant leap forward for his career. He took the chance. He packed his bags and left the pristine, orderly world of Munich for the passionate, raw, working-class cauldron of Dortmund. He didn't know it yet, but in a way, he was going home. Arriving at Borussia Dortmund was like stepping into another universe. If Bayern was the established aristocratic empire draped in history and silverware, Dortmund was the burgeoning, noisy rebellion. The energy crackling around the club, around the city, was infectious, and at the absolute center of that storm was Jürgen Klopp. Klopp didn't just see a defender in Hummels. He saw the perfect foundation, the calm, intelligent anchor for his high-octane, heavy-metal football. Klopp's philosophy of gegenpressing, hunting the ball down with rabid intensity the very instant it was lost, demanded defenders who were not only tough but technically superb and incredibly intelligent. They had to win the ball back cleanly and immediately launch the counterattack. Hummels was tailor-made for it. His profound calm was the perfect antidote to the beautiful chaos his team created further up the pitch. While others pressed with a frantic, furious energy, Hummels provided the composure. He would glide out of the defensive line to intercept a pass turn and in one fluid, elegant motion launch a 60-yard diagonal pass that landed perfectly at a winger's feet. He wasn't just a defender. He was Dortmund's quarterback. He quickly formed an iconic partnership with the rugged Serbian defender Neven Subotic, who had followed Klopp from Mainz. They became known as the Wonderwall, a young, formidable duo who were both physically imposing and technically gifted. Hummels was the elegant ball player, the artist. Subotic was the rugged warrior, the enforcer. Together, they were the unbreakable foundation upon which Klopp built his revolution. The loan was made permanent in February 2009, a decision that Bayern Munich would live to regret for years to come. Hummels was no longer just a Bavarian prospect. He was the beating heart of the Dortmund revival. The team, filled with a thrilling generation of young, hungry talents like Mario Götze, Shinji Kagawa, and a certain Robert Lewandowski, began to click into place. In the 2010-2011 season, they didn't just improve, they stunned Germany, playing with a breathtaking speed and collective intensity. Dortmund stormed to the Bundesliga title, their first in 9 long years. And at the heart of it all was Hummels, the undisputed leader of the best defense in the league, a general at just 22 years old. The following season was even more remarkable, a statement to the entire footballing world. They didn't just defend their Bundesliga crown. They completed the club's first ever domestic double by thrashing their great rivals, Bayern Munich, 5-2 in the DFB Pokal final. It was a symbolic coronation. This wasn't just a challenge anymore. The rebels hadn't just stood up to the empire. They had humiliated it on the biggest domestic stage. And Mats Hummels, the boy Bayern had let go, stood tall under the Berlin sky as a double winner, a champion forged in the fiery passion of the Westfalenstadion. His influence was undeniable. He had become the archetypal modern center back, a defender who played on the front foot, whose range of passing was a primary offensive weapon, and whose reading of the game was second to none. He was the conductor and the yellow wall, the stadium's famous South Stand, a pulsating, roaring, living beast of 25,000 souls was his orchestra. The crescendo of this incredible era arrived in the 2012-2013 season. Dortmund embarked on a thrilling, unforgettable run to the UEFA Champions League final, playing a brand of football that captivated all of Europe. They conquered a group of death featuring Real Madrid, Manchester City, and Ajax before dramatically dispatching Malaga at the death and then dismantling Real Madrid in the semi-finals. The final, as if written by the football gods themselves, was to be held at Wembley Stadium. And their opponent in the ultimate showdown was none other than Bayern Munich. It was Der Klassiker on the grandest stage of all, the vibrant rebellion against the powerful empire. Dortmund played with immense heart and courage. But in a cruel, agonizing twist of fate, a late Arjen Robben goal secured a 2-1 victory for Bayern. For Hummels and his teammates, it was a devastating, soul-crushing heartbreak. to come so far to play so well, only to fall at the final hurdle to the very team they had risen up to challenge. The image of the Dortmund players crestfallen and shattered on the Wembley turf was a poignant end to a golden chapter. And just like that, he was on top of the world, but football stories rarely stay at the peak forever. The fall, the betrayal, the next chapter. That's often where the real drama lies. We tell those stories every week here on Legends of Football League, tales of glory, heartbreak, and impossible comebacks. If that's the football you love, make sure you hit subscribe so you're with us for every single one. While club football brought those dizzying highs and crushing lows, Hummels had also cemented himself as a cornerstone of the German national team. His partnership with Bayern's Jerome Boateng, another player with a remarkably similar skill set and background, became the bedrock for one of the strongest international sides in the world. The 2014 FIFA World Cup in Brazil was the stage for their collective masterpiece. Germany marched through the tournament with a fearsome blend of tactical discipline and attacking flair, and Hummels was simply immense. He was a leader, a defensive rock, and a genuine goal threat. He scored the powerful opening header in Germany's 4-0 demolition of Portugal, and most crucially the towering, decisive header that was the sole goal in a tense, nail-biting 1-0 quarter-final victory over France. In the semi-final, he was part of the defense that stood and watched in awe as their team inflicted the historic, unbelievable 7-1 humiliation upon the host nation Brazil. Then came the final against Lionel Messi's Argentina. It was a brutal, grueling 120-minute war of attrition, and Hummels was a colossus. He battled through exhaustion, putting his body on the line time and time again. And when Mario Götze, his Dortmund teammate, chested the ball down and volleyed home, the winning goal deep in extra time, the dream was complete. Mats Hummels, the boy from the Bayern Academy, the hero of the yellow wall, was a world champion. The photo of him, his face bloodied from an aerial duel, but beaming with pure joy as he held the golden trophy aloft, became an iconic image of Germany's triumph. Back at Dortmund, however, the landscape was changing. The golden era was fading. Götze had already made his controversial move to Bayern in 2013, and Robert Lewandowski followed him a year later. The architect Jürgen Klopp departed in 2015. Hummels stayed. He became the club captain, the symbol of loyalty, the last man standing from that revolutionary side. He was the anchor in a time of turbulent transition, the living link to a glorious past. And then, in the spring of 2016, the unthinkable happened. News began to break, whispers at first, then a roar. The Dortmund captain, the man who represented the fight against Bavarian dominance, the very soul of the rebellion, was in talks to return to FC Bayern Munich. The reaction from the Dortmund faithful was one of pure shock, followed by betrayal, and then white-hot anger. To them, it was the ultimate act of treason. Their captain, their leader, their hero was defecting to the enemy. Hummels's reasoning was complex, born from ambition and a sense of time running out. He was approaching 28, the absolute peak of his career. The desire to win the Champions League, the one major trophy that had so cruelly eluded him, burned brighter than ever. And the chances of finally lifting it were undeniably higher at Bayern. It was also a return home to his family, to the city where he grew up. He framed it as a professional challenge and a personal homecoming. But for the fans on the yellow wall, who had idolized him, these reasons rang hollow. They booed him, they jeered him, and they held up banners calling him Judas. The transfer went through, and one of the most compelling narratives in modern football had taken its most dramatic, painful turn. The rebel hero had rejoined the empire. It's a decision that splits fans to this day. So I have to ask you, what would you have done in his shoes, Chase? That one elusive dream with your boyhood club, even if it meant breaking the hearts of the fans who made you a legend. Or stay loyal? Let me know your honest answer in the comments below. His time back at Bayern was by any objective measure a success. He won the Bundesliga title in each of his 3 seasons there, a constant high-level performer whose elegant style fit in seamlessly with their dominance. And yet, something felt different. At Dortmund, he was a revolutionary, a giant slayer. At Bayern, he was just another world-class component in a flawlessly oiled machine. The victories felt expected, not earned in that same hard-fought emotional way. The roar of the crowd was appreciative, but it wasn't the wild, chaotic love of the yellow wall. And the Champions League trophy, the very reason for the move, remained stubbornly, frustratingly out of reach. Football, like life, has a funny way of coming full circle. After 3 years in Munich, Hummels found himself at another crossroads. A new generation of defenders was emerging at both Bayern and for the national team, and his guaranteed starting place was beginning to look less certain. Then, in the summer of 2019, in a move that was almost as shocking as his departure, the news broke Mats Hummels was returning to Borussia Dortmund. The prodigal son was coming home. His return was met with a complex cocktail of emotions by the Dortmund fans. Some were still deeply hurt, unable to forgive what they saw as his betrayal. But most were pragmatic. They knew they were getting back a world-class defender, a leader with immense experience who could guide a new, exciting generation of young talents like Jadon Sancho and Erling Haaland. Hummels himself was different now. He was no longer the young, rising star. He was the elder statesman. His game had evolved. The blistering recovery pace of his youth had naturally waned, but it had been replaced by something perhaps even more valuable, an even more profound, almost supernatural understanding of the game. He relied less on his physical attributes and more on his footballing brain, which was sharper than ever. His positioning was immaculate, his anticipation uncanny. He was a master of the defensive arts, reading the game 3 steps ahead of every striker he faced. He once again became the defensive linchpin of the team. In 2021, he helped lead Dortmund to another DFB Pokal trophy, a sweet, validating victory that helped to reaffirm his place in the hearts of the fans. He was a mentor, a coach on the field, his voice a constant source of direction and encouragement for his younger teammates. The journey, however, was not without its share of fresh heartbreaks. The 2022-23 season ended in the most agonizing way imaginable. Dortmund went into the final day of the season top of the table, needing only a home win against Mainz to secure their first Bundesliga title in over a decade. The trophy was in their hands. In a catastrophic nervous collapse, they could only manage a 2-2 draw, handing the title to Bayern on goal difference. For Hummels, who watched much of the drama unfold from the bench, it was a devastatingly cruel blow. Yet there was to be one last glorious act. In the 2023-24 season, under coach Edin Terzic, a Dortmund man through and through the club embarked on another improbable magical Champions League run. Now 35 years old, Hummels was playing some of the best football of his entire career. In a team of young dynamic attackers, he was the wise, steadying, colossal presence at the back. He was magnificent in the knockout stages, particularly in the semi-final against Paris Saint-Germain. Over 2 legs, he completely nullified the terrifying threat of Kylian Mbappé and the entire Parisian attack. He was named man of the match in both games, and his powerful, decisive-headed goal in the second leg in Paris was the one that sent Dortmund to the final. It was a vintage performance, a timeless testament to his enduring class and intelligence. Once again, the final was at Wembley. Once again, the opponent was a Spanish giant, Real Madrid. And once again, it ended in heartbreak. Dortmund played brilliantly in the first half, but just couldn't find the breakthrough. In the end, the clinical, ruthless efficiency of Madrid proved too much, and Dortmund fell to a 2-0 defeat. For Hummels, it was a 3rd Champions League final, a 3rd defeat. A bitterly cruel end to a fairy tale run. But as he stood on that Wembley pitch, applauding the dejected but immensely proud Dortmund fans, there seemed to be a sense of peace. He had left every last ounce of himself out there. He had led his team, his club, back to the pinnacle of European football against all odds, a final magnificent act of defiance and brilliance. His story is a perfect circle. A boy who left Bayern to become a man at Dortmund, who returned to Bayern to win titles, and who came back to Dortmund one last time to find his footballing soul. He is a world champion, a multiple German champion. But perhaps more than any trophy, he is a player who defined an era. Mats Hummels was the elegant general, the thinking man's defender, a footballer whose career was a beautiful, complex, and unforgettable story. And that's where this incredible football story concludes. What a journey, right? I'm so eager to hear your thoughts. What moment stood out to you the most? The shocking return to Bayern, that World Cup winning performance, or his defiant final stand in the Champions League? Please share all your opinions, your favorite moments, and any questions you have in the comments below. I truly love reading them and building this amazing football community with all of you. And let me know which legend story you want to see us tell next.